This Coast to Coast Entertainment Network program is brought to you by Beside Me Bracelets. Our bracelets are handmade for any occasion. Use the promo code Coast to Coast for 15% off. Visit their website at besideme.com. Suzanne's Paparazzi Jewelry. With 24-hour shopping available, use the code 160920 and show her some love, like she showed us. Reaper Apparel Company, a commitment to live your most authentic way every single day. Visit reaperapparelco.com for more information and a look at all of their apparel offerings. And by Good Day Embroidery, your local source for custom embroidery, screen printing, and more. Log on to gooddayembroidery.com for more information.
Hello and welcome to another edition of C2C Rankem. I'm the host, Big B, along with my counterpart halfway around the world, Prime Ooze, Tim Hendricks. How you doing, buddy?
Doing good. You know, last week we all kind of came down with something.
Yeah.
It just sucks, and we have to apologize for that because it's about the time where everybody starts getting sick, and we're right at that list. Excited. I think is this our first show since the Super Bowl? I think it's our first.
Last week would have been our first show since Super Bowl. Yep. So.
Yeah. But yeah, you know, I'm happy the Eagles won. I think so is 99.9% of the people in the country were. I think backstage that you were happy to, or not.
Yeah, I mean, I was happy that the Eagles won. It would have been cool to see the three-peat, but you know, it is what it is. So, you know, what do you do? I mean, I was shocked that it was kind of a blowout. I mean, that kind of shocked me the most. But with that being said, today's show, we're breaking down, or ranking, I should say, not really breaking down, our top 5 MLB players from each decade, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010. And of course, then we got our great blind rank, which I think is always a fun one to start with. So with that being said, Tim, let's kick it off with the 80s. How many do you think we're going to get, if any?
I think we get. I'm pressing my luck saying we'll get 3, but at this point, anything's possible. It could go from anywhere between 0 and 3, but I think we're going to get 3.
Yeah. I do have a double up in some of these categories, mainly around the pitching. So I'll just let you know that one.
I have no double ups to make you feel any worse.
Oh, you're losing your slack here on the double ups. Normally, you're the one that, you know.
Yeah, I know. I'm the double up king. It's just, it didn't work out that way this time.
So with that being said, I'll go. I'm going to start it off light. I'm going to go 2. You said 3.
Yeah,
I'm going to go 2. So let's kick it off. Let's go with your number 5 for the.
My number 5. My number 5. I kind of went a little homer. A guy who played for my Brewers. Won the MVP in 2 different spots. Both in the American League when they were still in the American League. One of the few people in Milwaukee history, in the Brewers history, that has his number retired. I think there's only 3 others that are retired, 2 or 4 others that are retired in the Brewers organization. I was lucky enough to see him play in 1985, along with a person who has played on your team, from Minnesota originally, but mine's not. I think this, to me, I think he's probably the greatest Brewer of all time. I love watching him play. To me, I think, it's difficult to be an all MVP in this league in one position, but to do it in 2 it's even more difficult. My number 5 is Robin Yount.
That's a good one. Do you consider him a shortstop or?
I consider him outfielder.
Outfield, okay.
Yeah, because he won his second one as a right fielder.
Okay. Gotcha. Well, my number 5, I would say, I think a lot of people would probably consider him, and not being a Mets fan, I think a lot of non-Mets fans will probably consider him one of the greatest Mets of all time. I think he started the, kids wanted to be catchers, maybe, I think. But my number 5 is Gary Carter.
I remember
Carter.
I remember Gary Carter. I remember some of the first stuff that I opened when I was younger. I had Carter in an Expos jersey.
Yep.
And it was like, and then the 86 World Series really put Gary Carter in the forefront for a lot of us.
Yep.
No, I like that one. That one's a good one. And sucks what happened to him at the end of his Yeah, I would have never played catcher, but I definitely respected it because of Gary Carter.
Yep.
So yeah. So my number 4 is a third baseman. I think a lot of people call this guy the quintessential third baseman, especially in the 80s. Playing in Philadelphia, I don't think a lot of people really knew too many people that played in Philadelphia outside of maybe Doug McGraw, maybe Steve Carlton for a little bit. But you ever talk about Phillies and you go to a Phillies player, you go to a person who's been watching the Phillies since they were since the beginning, since Richie Ashburn days. You ask them what's the Philadelphia Philly that you really remember playing for Philly, being there his entire career. And it always came to me when I thought of third baseman was Michael Jack Schmidt.
Yeah, Mike Schmidt was a good one. Yeah, that's a good pick. My number 4, this guy, I know I've missed on a few lists when it comes to baseball. I'm not going to miss him here. Some people probably have him ranked higher. I probably would if he was playing on a different team and still put up the stats, but Padres back then weren't the greatest team, but they had some great talent come through that organization. And my number 4 is Mr. Padre himself, Tony Gwynn.
That was your number 4?
Yep.
Okay. Just I have to remember these things for later.
Your number 3.
My number 3, we did a show beginning of the year. I think I want to say beginning of our new season for the year, because he had passed away while we were on our small little hiatus. If people are thinking that I put Bob Uecker on this list, I think a lot of people have lost their mind. Again, another one of those guys I was lucky enough to see because I caught a double header between the Oakland A's and the Milwaukee Brewers. He matter of fact, he led off that game. He led off both games. They had the lead off both those games, and pretty much the integral part of the Bash Brothers group in the 90s, late 80s, early 90s. But what can we say? What can we say again that we hadn't said way back when in January? My number 3 is Ricky Henderson.
Yeah. No, I got you there. Yeah, I kind of did have Henderson on there, but he was like number 6. Just because he did so much. I mean, my number 3 is my double up pitchers. One guy who you talk about as the greatest, but yet never won a Cy Young. And one that came up and just threw rockets, and that was his nickname. I got Nolan Ryan and Roger Clemens.
It's always funny when you look at it. Nolan Ryan threw 7 no-hitters, right?
Yep.
And got no Cy Youngs.
Yep.
And how many Cy Youngs did Rocket have? And how many no-hitters did Roger Clemens have? I think he had none. I don't think Roger Clemens ever threw a no-hitter, which I always thought was strange because you got a guy who deserves the Cy Youngs, doesn't get them. It's not the fact is that he lost them to Roger Clemens, because at the time the Astros were in the National League, and Rocket was pitching over in the American League on Boston. So yeah, I get it. It's always hilarious when you see that and you go, this guy did this, and this.
Yep. And he got 7 hits off of Robert Ventura too.
But see, that was in the 90s, so that's okay.
You're right.
Yeah, that's a 90s hit.
So, all right, you're number 2.
My number 2, I think he came into the league in 1978. He's got one of the more memorable, and it's funny because when you see his Topps 1978 Topps baseball card, it's got 3 pictures of him, and it's really strange because you figured it when you realize what he became in this long term of his career, that he should have never shared a card with somebody for his rookie card, much like Carlton Fisk shared his rookie card with somebody else too. But he came into the Baltimore Orioles as a shortstop, moved over to third base so he could keep the wear and tear, so he could break Gehrig's record. To me, I know a lot of people are going to say, well, I don't have Ozzie Smith on the list, but again, that's a Padre that got used up and went to St. Louis. But I'm going to go with the Iron Man himself. I'm going to go with Cal Ripken Jr.
That's a good one. And here's another one too. If it wasn't for that streak, I don't know where Cal Ripken would lie. Not just at shortstop, but with Baltimore, with the players of that time. I mean, that streak really helped him.
Yeah,
have a career. So my number 2 is a guy that I know your pops would probably argue should be in the Hall of Fame. That's not. Oh, he wouldn't.
It depends on who it is.
But. Okay. Well, I know there's a lot of people that talk that I know that every time the Hall of Fame comes around, they say this guy should be in. Why is he not in? And that's Atlanta Braves, Dale Murphy.
Oh yeah, my dad would totally agree. He doesn't my dad would never would to this day not understand why Murphy's not in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know why he's not.
Yeah. Think about it. If Sterling Sharp can get in now, there's hope for Dale Murphy.
Oh yeah. All right, you're number 1.
Well, go ahead. Throw the flicker up on the board. It's the phrase that pays. It's not C2C unless we're sniping. My number 1 is half year 2. I've got Nolan Ryan. What can you say? What he did? It was, I probably would have thrown Clemens on there, but Clemens came in 84?
Yeah, something like that. It was early 80s.
And to be honest, if Yount wasn't on the list, Clemens probably would have been at 5 or something. But like I said, it's a little difficult. But Nolan Ryan, what can you say that hasn't already been said about Nolan Ryan? We've said a lot of stuff about Nolan Ryan, and I still blame him for the Texas Rangers for not being good after he became the general manager and became the president of the company But that's George Bush's fault. So,
yeah. Well, my number 1 is, it's hard to play at third base. They call it the hot corner. I think this guy did a lot over there. You had Mike Schmidt with the Phillies on your list. I'm going with Boston Red Sox great Wade Boggs.
And as soon as you said third base, I'm going, there's only 2 that legitimately – there's technically 3 that could have legitimately been on this list because I could have put Brett on here too.
Yeah, George Brett.
And I'm like, Schmidt had to be, for me, Schmidt. I don't argue with Wade Boggs.
George Brett thing is, I think he's more noticeable for his offense ability, where Boggs, I think, is more notable for that glove.
Well, and the funny thing is, and then you brought up we just brought up three batters in the 80s that were always floating a 400 for how long. Boggs always hit. I don't know how many batting titles Boggs won. I don't know how many titles Gwynn won in the 80s. And George, and if it wasn't Boggs winning it, it was Brett.
Yep.
And so it's hard not to it's hard to argue who was the best hitter in the 80s because those 3 were amazing.
Like you said, if it wasn't Boggs, it was Brett. You know, and then you get that sneaky name in there, like I think late 80s, 88, 89, you had Puckett would have won or two,
Yeah,
you know, at that time. So,
right.
yeah. So, all right. So let's move to the 90s. Again, I actually got two double ups, one pitching and one hitting. Uh, God, we didn't do so hard. I'm going to stick with two.
I like two. I think two will be. I think two is going to be fine. Three, I thought I was a little overboard. I realized we weren't going five the moment when I looked on our list and I saw Robin Yount. I went, I'm pushing my luck for four.
Yeah.
But yeah,
All right.
two is
So I'm
possible.
kicking it off. I'm going to go with one of the great middle infielders, second or short. I think whoever you paired them up with just could turn double plays like it was nothing. And I'm going to go with Roberto Alomar.
Oh, I thought you were going somewhere else. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, Alomar. I think Alomar would be higher on a lot of on people's lists if he hadn't spit on an umpire.
Yep.
I think he would be higher on everybody's list.
Yeah, and I think Alomar and Vizquel, no, not Vizquel. Yeah, Omar Vizquel were the best middle infield combo ever.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. That was tough to
You're
argue.
talking about poetry and motion when those two turned to double play.
Yeah.
All right, you're number 5.
Well, you kind of sniped me in the last one, and not the Roberto Alomar, but you liked him in the 80s. I liked him in the 90s. I think you had him at 5.
Okay.
I've got him at 5. Again, we just got done talking about Brett, and Boggs. Yeah, my number 5 is Tony Gwynn.
I had him at 4.
You had him 4.
Yeah. Yeah, Tony Gwynn was one of those where you could have put him in the 80s, you could have put him in the 90s. Just like Ricky Henderson,
Yeah.
My number 4, I got a double here because I know people are going to say PhDs were involved, but I think these two put on a show that helped juvenize baseball in the home run category, and that was Sammy Sosa, Mark McGwire.
You had to put.
I think we don't have the 90s. We don't have baseball if it wasn't for that showdown they did for, 2+ years?
Yeah, it was 2.5 almost, because it was the moment that I think it got really solidified is when McGwire went to Seattle or to St. Louis.
Yeah.
And then you're basically head to head for the guy in your division for the title for the home run.
All right, you're number 4.
My number 4, I still think that the strike in 94, I can't remember if it was a 94 strike. I know there was only one strike in the 90s. It's a hot take, and it's a conspiracy theory. I think it was the MLB's way of making sure that the Expos never won a world championship. But what can I say? That team was loaded. And I still remember the 89 Donruss where my brother had a dozen of these things. I bet you my brother right now, if he's watching this, wishes he had those same dozen of them. You're going to think I'm talking about Pedro Martinez or Ramon Martinez. No, I'm not. But the guy who's got probably one of the greatest nicknames in baseball history, kills a bird and uses it as your photography logo is even better. I like this guy. I think this guy and one other pitcher on my list were probably the two most dominant pitchers in the 90s. My number 4 is I think he was with Seattle for like half of the 90s. So my number 4 is the former Montreal Expos, Seattle. I always want to say Supersonics when I say Seattle, and we're talking about baseball. The Seattle Mariners, Randy Johnson.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, that's a good one. It's funny because I do some card rips, as you know.
Mhm.
And lately, a lot of Randy Johnson's cards this year are coming out. There's one that's called Call to the Hall. They got him in a Diamondbacks jersey. Yeah, I know. Yeah, we all cringe every time we see that card. But you talk about former Expos, and I believe this guy was one of them. Went to the Colorado Rockies. I think he's if you follow baseball, especially for our generation, you probably say he's the face of the Rockies up until Blackman now. But he flirted around with 400 a few times, and that's one Larry Walker.
I think he's the first. I know he's the first Canadian Hall of Famer.
He's the first one? Yeah, I think so. I think you're right.
I think he's the first Canadian Hall of Famer.
Yep. You're number 3.
This is funny because my number 3 was the guy I thought you were talking about when you were talking about should be in the Hall of Fame but isn't in the Hall of Fame, and this is where I thought my dad would disagree with you completely. A guy, like you said with McGuire and Sosa, where rejuvenated baseball. Yeah, they were on PEDs, but sometimes you gotta, they use special effects in movies. Why do they just happen to use special effects on the field to get and basically kick-started baseball over again. The funny thing is, the guy I'm talking about really didn't need it. That's the sad thing. And because he already had the numbers when he left Pittsburgh to go to San Francisco, and I think, his attitude and everything else was kind of trashy, but he had the skills, and everybody's like, well, he should be in the Hall of Fame because you still have to have the eye-hand coordination. And I said, right on that alone should tell you that his excuse for using performance-enhancing drugs is null and void, because he would have been exactly where he should be right now if he had never done that. And you don't piss off the people who are voting for you for the Hall of Fame, like with the press, because he was a wonderful job just irking the people in the press. My number 3 is the asterisk guy himself, Barry Bonds.
Yeah, Bonds. I mean, I agree. Didn't need him. The only thing I would argue is, a lot of people said if he didn't use him, he'd be where he's at today. I mean, granted, some of the stats would not be where they're at today.
They wouldn't be bloated.
I don't think he would have. I don't think he'd be the all-time home runs leader.
No, but he'd still be in the Hall of Fame. He'd still hit 600 home runs.
Oh yeah, no doubt. He'd still be on Hall of Fame pace. No doubt about that.
Yeah.
So, and he probably wouldn't be the all-time leader in intentional walks either. So
no.
So my number 2 is a trio of pitchers. And I know you probably already know where I'm going with this one because I bring them up all the time, and I can't talk without one without talking about the other 2. 2 of them, I believe, are Michigan natives up where we grew up at.
It depends on if you have the one. If you have the other, if you've only got one of them, because unless you have Avery.
Oh, no, I don't have Avery. No.
Avery's the Michigan guy that pitched against your other guy.
Gotcha. Okay, that's what it is.
In the Little League game.
But no, I got a lot of Braves pitchers, and I don't think anybody would argue that these 3 dominated the 90s for the Braves. Just couldn't win the big one. Maddox, Smoltz, and Glavine.
Yeah, go ahead and hit your flashy thing because I've got one of your 3.
All right.
So it's a phrase that pays. It's it's not C2C unless you're sniping. I've got Greg Maddux. I had to have him on the list. Oh, please tell me you don't blink it, and then all of a sudden you blink off again. But yeah, I had Greg Maddux. Yeah, I have. I completely agree with the Glavine and Smoltz. I think I've told this story about 3,000 times on this show. So, lucky enough to see those guys as little leaguers because my dad made sure we had to go see them. So yeah, I absolutely get it. And they had the stuff then too, and they both could hit.
Yeah. My number 1, without a shadow of doubt, I know I'm a Puckett fan. And I think Puckett, to me, as a kid, was a great center fielder. But I'll tell you right now, watching clips, seeing all the highlights here,
I know it's Bo Jackson.
Puckett's a good number 2, but what can you say about Ken Griffey Jr.? What he brought to the Mariners, to the Reds, back to the Mariners.
To the White
I'm not going to talk about
the White Sox.
The White Sox, but yeah, Ken Griffey Jr. by far, and what better way? And I know LeBron could now say this too, but to play with your dad in a professional sport on the same team, hit a home run back to back with your dad.
That's a whole different. That's a whole different monster.
So
that's a whole different monster. And
yeah,
and I'm go ahead and put it up there because you sniped me, of course, because I had Ken Griffey Jr. as well. Think about if we're talking about if he hadn't gotten hurt for that brief period of time in there too, where would we be talking about? He would be talking about he'd be in conversations with Barry Bonds on steroids. That's the sad thing is because we're talking Ken Griffey Jr. natural versus Barry Bonds on steroids. Now, if we had Ken Griffey Jr. and Barry Bonds we never want to see the kid on steroids. But if we're talking Bonds against, it'd be a great race for the best player ever in the '90s between Griffey and Bonds, and Bonds had to do it with drugs, and Griffey didn't.
Yep. No, you're exactly right on there. All right, let's get into the 2000s. Yeah, this one's wide open and stuff like that. So, so with that being said, let's get with it. We're missing a lot. I'm sticking with 2.
We're right at 2. I like your 2. I really do.
All right, you kick it off.
You're gonna. The sad thing is, you're gonna look at this list and you're gonna go, "Holy smokes, Tim! You think you're a New York Yankees fan?" And I'm not. That's why Griffey was number 1 in the '90s because he never wanted to play for the Yankees, even though his dad did. That's funny. But my number 5 was one of those pitchers that you kind of got scared of, and really happy that the Brewers went to the National League after this pitcher came out of nowhere and started closing games for the Yankees. The moment you hear Hell's Bells, I know it was Enter Sandman or Hell's Bells. It's one of the two. It was Metallica, whatever it was. But the guy was a freak, and Milwaukee for a little bit had Trevor Hoffman. But we got Trevor Hoffman on the backside of his career. He's Hell's Bells. Trevor Hoffman's Hell's Bells. That's who it is. But my number 5 was just a freak. And it was much a lot like Dennis Eckersley was in the 90s, late 80s, early 90s, mid 90s. This was a guy that was pretty much locked down. Surprised he never got the Cy Young, which is really weird. Yeah. Much like Eckersley did. Eckersley had won the Cy Young. But my number 5 is probably the greatest closer in New York Yankees history, Mariano Rivera.
Yep. No, can't argue about that Yankee there. So, my number 5, again, 2000s. Got triple up because if you talk about one, you can't talk about the other. The third guy, some could probably, couldn't have left out of the conversation, but every year when it came down to the Cy Young, especially when my third guy got involved, who was going to win the Cy Young? Was it going to be this guy? Was it going to be that guy? Is this guy, you had Randy Johnson in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
I got him in the 2000s. I got to pair it up with Pedro Martinez, a couple former Expos. And then also Jose Santana for the Twins.
Johan. Oh, yeah. Johan.
Yeah. It just seems like every year it was like, is this guy going to win it? Is this guy, So those 3 were just dominant right there.
Yeah. Absolutely agree. Completely agree.
You're number 4.
Like, I've kind of foreshadowed this about you should pretty much know who's basically on my list at this point. If it wasn't, I think because of this guy, I think the Yankees, and I'm going to say this just to see if I can anger some Yankees fans. truthfully, I think this is the guy that was the reason for the resurgence of the New York Yankees. I know it was drafted in '94 by the Yankees, but if it wasn't for this guy, and this is the guy, it's crazy. I didn't watch Yankees. I didn't watch Yankees highlights because it was the Yankees. I usually watched it because of the shortstop they had, and they were always kind of looking for that next shortstop. They tried it with Alfonso Soriano. They tried it with heck. I think for a little bit briefly they were looking at. I know they brought in Knobloch, but I think Knobloch was playing second.
Yeah, then he moved out to left field because he couldn't make that throw.
Because he couldn't make that throw because he hit Keith Olbermann's mom.
Yeah.
But my number 4 is the captain himself. One of the guys that helped take Mariano Rivera out of the game when Mariano's last day. The captain himself, funny he wore number 2. Number 4 was somebody else. Derek Jeter.
My number 4 is a former Twin, which I wish they would have kept over a certain catcher, but they didn't think this guy was going to amount to anything. And the way the Twins got this guy, he was just a player to be named later from Seattle. So kind of funny how his career turned around, but clutch moments in Boston history has this guy in there. Just recently, there was an interview with Dustin Pedroia.
Yeah.
Saying that Poppy never knew his real name. He always called him Pee Wee.
Yeah, he called him Pee Wee.
Which is hilarious. If you guys haven't seen it yet, Google it because it's funny.
It's great.
But my number 4 is David Ortiz.
Yeah. That's one guy. I think you guys would have been great if you guys would have kept, because I know you're talking about Morneau, right?
No,
you're thinking about
they wanted Matthew Lecroy.
You want to? Oh, Lecroy, you guys could have gotten rid of Lecroy. You guys had Mauer and the you had Mauer in the.
No, this is way before. Mauer wasn't even a Twin then, but no, it was Matthew Lecroy and David Ortiz. Every year was the big. Well, if you give this guy so many at bats, he's going to do it. And Lecroy was always tearing up the minor leagues. So they're like, well, let's give Lecroy the at bats, and there was also 2 that David Ortiz did not want to play on the turf every day, so that was a big factor too.
Well, the worst thing is when he ended up going to Boston, they gave him what he wanted. He played DH and he didn't play. Yeah. He didn't play first.
Yep. So you're number 3.
My number 3, well, this will make you kind of happy. It's not C2C unless you're sniping, and I think you have him in the triple up at number 5. I've got Randy Johnson again. Again, this guy was just lights out.
No, you're right. Yeah, he was. Yeah. Well, I finally got you, or you got me. I don't know how it is, but I got, like you said, probably the best closer in Yankee history. The great moment when they took him out of the game with Jeter and Pettit. It actually brought a tear to my eye. It was just, I wish more teams would do that like that. I think some are.
Some are.
Yeah. So Mariano Rivera, to me, would be one of 2 Yankee jerseys that I would like to own.
So I think
Jeter being the other one.
Jeter being the other one.
Yeah, you're number 2.
The funny thing is, we bought my dad a Babe Ruth jersey, and it was a Boston Braves Babe Ruth jersey. He hated that. He says, don't ever soil a Braves jersey again. I'm like, Dad, it's Babe Ruth. I don't care. Okay, great. My number 2, funny thing is, my number 2 is former teammates of basically the bottom 3, and one was a double teammate in Seattle. Another guy. This is the Barry Bonds conversation again, all over again. The guy had the talent. The guy had everything. He was basically the mirror of Derek Jeter.
Yep.
Except he had the power. He had the power that Jeter was slightly lacking. It was another one of those. Another guy who should be in the Hall of Fame. He could have been in the Hall of Fame just on the pure numbers that he had going in until he decided to do something stupid. Now I believe he is now the majority holder in Minnesota.
Yep.
After he won arbitration or the court hearing that I just heard last
Yep.
week. The true, and this is where I'm going to piss off the Packer fans, folks. The original A-Rod, Alex Rodriguez.
Yep. Good one. You know, when you brought up, you know, my guy was, you know, you said A-Rod was teammates of half of your list. I thought you were talking about my number 2 because he was teammates of half of your list too.
Yeah.
Also in Seattle. I don't think him and A-Rod got together though in Seattle. I could be wrong. But the guy went into the Hall of Fame this year. Should have been 100% voted in as unanimous, but a local Minnesota reporter decided not to vote for him.
Some crazy man in Minnesota,
and that's Ichiro Suzuki.
So, if anybody in the Baseball Writers Association is seeing this, if he wants to give any one of us a vote, next time we won't screw that up.
Yeah,
Ichiro's getting it 100% at that point.
Yep.
I'm almost
your number one.
My number one. I'm wondering because I haven't heard this name on your list yet, and this guy legitimately scares me. Being a Brewers fan, and you see him, I don't know how many times a year, and this is before they really started working they started really booking. Now I'm starting talking WWE. That they started doing the schedule right. The guy who basically replaced your Mark McGwire at first base in St. Louis. I think this guy was absolutely. And the funny thing is, I think he ended up going to high school. I think he graduated from high school in St. Louis, which I think is crazy. This guy to me, absolute class act, absolute the power that he had. I'm surprised that they didn't win more World Series with him on the roster. You know, and then they let him walk to Los Angeles. I thought that was beyond dumb. Still confusing. Absolutely the most confusing thing I've ever seen. My number one is Fat Albert himself, Albert Pujols.
Well, I'll give you half on that.
Which part, the Albert or the Pujols?
But you also sniped me earlier in the 90s, I think, with my number one.
Oh.
Because what can you say? I mean, Bonds did so much. I mean, yes, you could tell the arguments, but you still had to hit the ball with a round bat, you know. And yes, some of his monster home runs were probably just first row home runs.
Yeah.
Some of his home runs that barely got out, were probably long fly balls. I get that, but
I get it, but you still got to do it. And
you still had to do it. You still had to play. And you know, PhDs, like you said, movies use enhancers. Why can't players?
Exactly.
You know, that's a whole different debate, but Bonds, Albert Pujols, to me in the 90s, or 2000s.
Yeah,
that was your top there.
And Pujols did it clean. Again,
yeah, there's some people that are speculating though. But
those, you know what we call them? Giants fans.
All right, let's move into the 2010s before we get into our blind ranking.
I forgot he was on this list.
I'm probably going to have to choke it back a little bit, a couple of these people, because I don't know.
Yeah, I know. I think my number one is sitting on that list going, hey.
But, yeah. I'm going to – I mean, we did three. I'm going to stick with two. There's so many people that we could pick from that, it's hard to snipe.
Yeah.
You know? But I'm going to kick it off with number 5. Today, I mean, yes, he has a good career. Yes, he can't stay healthy. I think a lot of people have backed him off as the face of baseball because of Ichiro. Or not Ichiro, but
Ohtani.
Ohtani, yeah. I don't think Angels did this guy any justice when he was on the field. I feel bad for him, but it's just hard for me to You know, a lot of people say he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, and I just don't see it.
He's not unanimous. I'll tell you that.
It's not unanimous, no, but yeah, Mike Trout.
Yeah, I knew you had him on there. That's one of them that you have to choke back. I understand.
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah,
Well,
because everybody talks about how he's the,
He was supposed to be the
he's a
second
favorite,
coming.
but he's the face of baseball. No, I don't see it. He hasn't done nothing.
The thing is, everybody says he's the best. He's the second. He was the second coming of Mickey Mantle.
Yes,
Probably Mickey Mantle was a switch hitter. Mickey Mantle did half the time. Mickey Mantle did half that stuff drunk. You know, think if Mickey Mantle wasn't drunk at the time.
You're number 5.
Well, you kind of had him in the 2000s, which I thought, and I forgot completely that he was on this list until I laid it down. So I'll give it to you. I can't remember where you had him. I think you had him at number 3. The former Twin himself. You had him at 2.
David Ortiz.
Yep.
I had him at 4.
You had him at 4. I've got him at 5 in the 2010s. I'm lucky enough to see him play, and he's him and Manny Ramirez. They're all that they're worth the price of admission. I'll tell you that.
Yep. All right, my number 4. Again, 2 pitchers that I can't talk with. You can't talk about one without kind of throwing the other one in there, especially if you're comparing stuff.
Right.
These 2 were dominant. You just question their postseason ability if they can bring it home. One of them, I think, now needs to be moved to the bullpen. The other one, he's still hanging around as a starter. But my number 4 is Clayton Kershaw and Matt Scherzer.
Like Zach Greinke.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. I think
you're number 4.
Yeah, Clayton just re-signed for
I know.
22 or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I agree with you. If you want longevity with Kershaw, I think you need to put him in a bullpen. My number 4, a former teammate of Albert Pujols in St. Louis. Another guy I respected a lot, especially if you're a base stealer in Major League Baseball. To me, probably the best of the 3 brothers that played in Major League Baseball. And no, it's not Wilton or Wilson Contreras that play for the Cardinals and the Brewers now, but absolutely, I think this guy his batting average was terrible. You know how we were talking about George Brett and Mike Schmidt and Wade Boggs and Tony Gwynn about how these guys were about 350, batting 350 every year plus. I think for the longest time, I think this guy was batting at 212. He was terrible, but you didn't put him on your roster to hit the ball. You pitched so he could call a good game and make sure nobody ran on him. My number 4 is Yadier Molina.
No, that's a good one. Yeah, I think you're right. That definitely one of the best of the 3. I think probably best of that family because I think their dad caught too.
I think their dad caught too.
Yeah. My number 3, former Florida Marlin. Oh, excuse me. Former Florida Marlin, but this guy every year, well, not lately, but in his prime, he was always up there chasing the Triple Crown. Finally got it. We always, I don't know what else to say about the guy, but Miguel Cabrera.
Yeah. So go ahead, put your little flashy thing up there, because your number 3 is my number 3. You get the Triple Crown, like you said. He's flirting with it. He was flirting with 400. I don't know how many times. He's the why do I say that? He's the Gwynn. He's the Gwynn, the Boggs, the Brett of the 2010s. Lately he's fallen off, but it's also the 2020s, and he's a little bit older. But yeah, I completely agree. He's a whole different player from when he went from when he was in the Florida Marlins organization, because he was a tiny guy in the Marlins organization. Then he goes to Detroit, and it seems like he learned how to eat like Cecil Fielder there for a while. But yeah, absolute, and one of the greatest guys that has ever come through the Tigers organization, both on the field and off the field. An amazing guy.
Yep. My number 2 is another guy like Trout. I mean, this guy has more credibility of being the face of baseball. But at the age of 19, they hyped him up so much. He was the first overall pick for the Washington Nationals. The ego was just too big. I thought he was God's gift. Played catcher, moved to right field. Now he's playing first base for Philly. I've actually gained respect for him recently, just listening to him talk and stuff. But my number 2 is Bryce Harper.
I wish I had Bryce Harper on this list. I think the moment there was time. What was it? A time when he was with the Nationals when he got into an argument with Papelbon in the dugout. I was hoping that Papelbon would have hit him.
Yep.
But it didn't happen. My number 2. Go ahead. It's flashy thing all over again. It's the phrase that pays. You have him at your double up at number 4. I've got Clayton Kershaw. I've never been a big Max Scherzer fan. I think Kershaw has just blown himself out. I think he should have retired 2 years ago, but I think he's in it for the rings that everybody's going to give him now.
Well, my number 1, I mean, what can you say about this catcher? I think our beloved J-Mac posted a comment when he retired. He only allowed 3. What's that?
J-Mac retired?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. This guy retired.
Oh, okay.
J-Mac, I think, posted a stat that he only allowed 5 pass balls in his career or wild pitches or something like that.
Really?
Should be a first. I don't think he's up for the Hall yet, but should be. Definitely a first ballot. And that's Giants catcher Buster Posey.
I'm like, there's only one other catcher that I can remember from that time, and I'm like, who in the world is it? I'm like, it's got to be Buster Posey.
Yeah, you're number 1.
My number 1 is the phrase that pays. It's not C2C unless you're sniping. My number 1 is your number 5. I'm the guy who believes in the Mike Trout hype, but I don't believe he's the unanimous. He's not a unanimous guy, but yeah, I think he's. I like him. He's good. Let's see. I'm trying to find out when Posey is when he retired. I know he's working with years ago. He retired after 2021, so he's not due until
next year.
Actually, next year.
Nope.
Next year's.
All right, let's get into our fun category. What can we say about this category?
That hasn't been already said.
It blows our minds every time we do it. So I'll let you start with your category. We don't know what each other's category is, so this is a 100% blind ranking. So,
all right, and I know we haven't done this because I go back and look. I don't think you've done it. I'm a big guy, and that means I kind of eat. So, and I think you and I have been to 4 of these. I don't think we've been to one of these together. I don't think we have been. But these are which fast food restaurants do you prefer?
Fast food restaurants, okay.
All right. Dairy Queen.
Oh, that's tough because Dairy Queen, yes, has burgers and stuff, but if I go for ice cream, it's number 1. I'm going to go number 4 for DQ.
All right. 4. Okay, we'll go KFC next.
KFC?
5.
Yeah.
5.
Ooh.
5.
No, KFC's good.
5.
I'll go number 2 for KFC.
Jesus.
All right. Subway.
5. 4. 3.
Yes, I got to go 3. Subway is one of those things that, they got a lot of options. You know,
Yeah.
Yes.
Burger King.
ooh, that's tough. I'm gonna go number one just because I love Burger King's
If
burgers.
Taco Bell's
I've gotten Burger King's burgers used to make me sick, but for some reason I came here and I started really liking Burger King stuff again because they don't use the liquid smoke here.
All right, number 5 is
And the next last one, we used to go there after night moves religiously Fridays and Saturdays, as if it were the end all be all. Taco Bell.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have number 1.
Taco Bell. Yeah, it's my number 5.
I go there every day. We're in Northfield.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I'd probably put it ahead of Dairy Queen, but if they get some good tacos in there, I mean, some specialty tacos, they can be pretty good. So
Yeah, but I was Taco Bell 1, Burger King 2, Subway 3, KFC 4, Dairy Queen 5.
okay,
So
all right,
basically the reverse order I gave them to you in.
yeah. All right, so my topic for you, since it's baseball season, training camps are opening up. Spring trainings are right around the corner.
Yeah, and I have my NBA hat on.
I'm going to give you 5.
Oh, here we go.
There's a lot of them too, but so I know I left some people off the list. Best shortstops.
Oh God! And I have 2 or 3 on my list. Okay.
My first one I'm going to give you. I don't think he got the recognition because of the team he played for and how bad they were, except for the 2 World Series that they won. But to me, I thought this guy was phenomenal covering ground and had the cannon. I'm going Minnesota Twins, Greg Gagne.
Gagne. God, I liked Gagne too. I'm going to say 4, but I like watching Gagne.
I brought him up earlier as part of a combo. Omar Vizquel.
God, this is hateful. I'm going to say 2. Oh, wow. I'm going to say 2 because, he was difficult. I'm going to regret this in a minute.
Your third one, the Iron Man himself, Cal Ripken.
I go 3. I have to go 3 on that because I'm looking at who am I looking at? I'm looking at. Oh God, this is terrible because I just put one of the 2
before you leave.
And I'm like, I just put one of the 2 greatest at 5. Oh no!
So you put him at 3, you said?
Yeah, I just put one of the 2 greatest at 5.
The Wizard Man himself, Ozzie Smith.
I know it because Derek Jeter is the other one. Damn it! I'm gonna put Oz at 5.
And Derek Jeter at 1.
I gotta put Jeter at 1. I have to. I at that point I would have. Golly, I'd have shifted everybody down from Jeter down. From Jeter, I'd have stepped at 1. I'd have left everybody down and put Oz above Omar Vizquel.
Yep. I had Jeter, Smith, Ripken, Vizquel, and then Gagne at 5.
Yeah, that's If I had to do it over again, matter of fact, that sounds exactly the way it should have gone. Golly,
well, that's the fun part about it,
Yeah.
Who are you gonna get stuck with,
I'm taking all 5. I have no problem taking all 5 at shortstop.
No, exactly. So
because I think Molitor a shortstop. No,
Molitor, yeah, I think he kind of played all. I don't think he played much first base, but he played all around the infield.
Yeah, he played. I know he played second, and then can't remember. I think we had Ogilvy come in late, and I think he played second. And then they moved Molitor to short, and I can't remember. And then Cecil Cooper played third.
Yeah. So with that being said, guys, Tim, any final thoughts? Anything big coming up?
Not until 2026.
What's going on in 2026?
Well, if most people know anything about the sports, there's the Winter Olympics start in 2026, just down the road in Milano. I have tickets for the first for the first Saturday at 2:40 in Milano to see a preliminary round of women's ice hockey.
All right. No, that should be fun. That should be fun.
2026.
For me, nothing exciting here, but for C2C, just keep checking us out all week long, daily. We try to post content daily. Last night was late night with Callan. I know James and Crispy did a tailgate show Sunday night, I think it was.
Yeah, Sunday and my Monday morning. But yeah.
Well, we're trying to find a good time slot for Between the Ropes and everybody can get there. So that's been kind of on a hiatus thing. Dragon Viper and Crispy for Entertainment Hour, where they like to steal some of our bits.
That's why we're doing more.
Said, though,
that's why we're doing more sports ones. They can't steal our bits this way.
Yeah. I got interviews set up coming up with the St. Paul Saints Bears. Trying to get the coaching staff to come on all at once to talk about the tryouts that they got coming up. So we'll see if that gets worked out. But with that being said, we'll see y'all next week on Rankem. Have a good one.